the way in which it works is much better, we believe, than us going and doing some kind of mission and then coming home and then we leave and those people for the rest of the year are by themselves. Through our sponsorship of children here in the Mentawai Islands of Indonesia, what happens is that money is taken and there are actually on staff every day ministering in these communities with FH. You'll get to hear about the staff and some of the things that we got to do and talking to them and ministering to them and encouraging them and seeing them work in these villages. That's something that we just can't do. Like, it's the best way in which we can change that community is if we have somebody that's living in the community with them on a daily basis to change and to encourage and to lift up. And so we really believe in this partnership. We've seen transformation already begin to take place in the villages where we're already working, and FH is working to expand their work in the Mentawai Islands of Indonesia. If you don't know where Mentawai is, it's basically, look where we are on the globe, and on the other side of the globe that's pretty much it. It's a long trip to get there. We really felt like God was calling us to this place, though. When you talk to Food for the Hungry, they have multiple church partnerships in South America. You know how many church partnerships they have in Indonesia? One. And it's Quest Fellowship Church. Why? Because it's so hard to get there. Churches don't want to do the hard thing anymore. They want to do the easy thing. And so for us, we were like, okay, where is it hard for you to get people to go? And then they began to tell us about Mentawai. And we were like, that's where God's calling us. So we're excited today to kind of share with you what we think God did while we were there. This is the team that went. You can see them in the picture. That was us in Mentawai at the guest house where we stayed. You'll get to hear from each of them kind of what they learned and what they took away. You'll get to see some pictures, and at the end we're going to have a summation video that kind of shows the vision of Mentawai. So Michael, I'm going to let you go first. You got the mic?
So one story I wanted to start with was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Dave and Cammie, they were talking the whole time they wanted to go on a boat ride to go see these large lizards, were they Komodo dragons or something like that, and really large snakes. I was thinking this would be cool to go see this from the safety of our boat. Until I see the boat. It's a little canoe, it's about this wide. 5 of us are sitting in there, and we get real low and sink lower and lower. As you can see, there's a larger boat you guys go ahead and play it. There's a larger boat that comes up, and as it does, it doesn't slow down. And the wake of the boat, the water comes over into our canoe, and we sink. Except for Cammie. She stays in the boat. So it's nasty, as you can see. There's our gas can going off. We're like, we kind of need that. Otherwise, we can't get back. It's about an hour or so there, an hour or so back. So we desperately needed the gas can. And at this point, remember, we're going to see these Komodo dragons and the boa constrictor snakes. I don't feel safe anymore. So Cammie, get out of the boat. Come on. Finally, Cammie gets out of the boat, and they lift the boat up out of the water, and they get all the water out. And at this point, it's too late to turn around, so we just have to keep going. So we continue going on. We hit another scare. We go to where the mangroves actually are, the really large, massive things. And this big boat comes up, like this thing is massive, and it's coming, and there's not much room, like maybe 6 feet wide, and this big boat's probably like 6 feet wide, and we have to go as close as we can to the mangroves, hold on while we're literally pushing the boat away as it scrapes against our boat. So that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I will probably never do that again unless I'm in a big boat.
While Michael's talking, there'll be some pictures scrolling behind him of some of the things that he saw and took while he was there.
So yeah, as you guys can see, some interesting food choices and all those different types of things. The Mentawai is a trip I've always wanted to go on ever since I heard about the opportunity years ago. And this past February, obviously, I finally got the chance to go. Cleared the schedule, started raising funds. And the thing that was the most nerve-wracking for me was not the travel as much as it was, what is my role on the team? I didn't feel like I really knew what I could offer. I've taught before many times in a church setting, in nonprofit organizations and those types of things. And currently I'm a counselor, and there's probably not necessarily a lot of counseling I could do there in Mentawai. And so for some reason they put me to work with the school teachers. I thought, great. I don't know anything about school teachers. I've never taught before, anything like that. In a school setting, I didn't know what the need was. So while we were there, myself and several others who went to go tour the different schools, and to see the setting of the schools, it's pretty rough. Most of them are just cinder block concrete buildings. There are holes and stuff in the walls, cracked floors. The whiteboard's not really white. You can't really see kind of what is written on the whiteboard. Very, very little school supplies. It's chaos. Kids just get up and leave and walk out of the classroom. Some classrooms walked into, there are no teachers in there. So it was kind of crazy. And so I'm thinking, how in the world am I supposed to do anything with this group? Because I don't really know what I can offer. Until we went to the actual school training there, and all the school teachers were there, and they were talking about their greatest needs. And the 4 areas that they said were their greatest needs were, one was illiteracy, the second was parental involvement. I'm thinking, okay, well, I can't help with either one of those. And the cool thing was FH had already planned on their first day of the teacher training was touching on those exact subjects, thinking, oh, that's awesome. What am I going to do? Until I hear about the third and the fourth major areas of concern was student motivation and dealing with the behaviors of the students. And I thought, thank you, Lord. Because that is actually the area that I'm used to, I'm comfortable with. Working with adolescents most of my life, worked in group homes, and do a lot of motivation and behavioral training and stuff. So it was just neat to see how God had orchestrated that from the beginning. And the last thing I want to end with is for those of you who are considering going on this mission trip. A lot of times, at least I felt this way. At first, whenever I was signing up for this mission trip, I was excited. I was going to go to Mentawai. We were going to go work. We were going to go serve. And in some ways, I felt like Mentawai needed me. But at the end of the trip, as I really reflected on it and asked the Lord kind of what He was kind of teaching me, I felt at the end of the trip that I needed Mentawai more than Mentawai ever needed me. Now, we went and we did great work. It was awesome. But God did so much work in my life, and I'm sure the rest of the team, as you'll hear. So I encourage you, if you ever get the opportunity to go to Mentawai, trust me, it'll be well worth it. It'll be definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience. If you go on a boat ride, ask how big the boat is first.
Yeah.
Hello. So,
This is Cammie.
hello.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Ever since they first announced that we were going to partner with Mentawai, I was determined to go. I was going to go, and I was going to meet the kids that we had chosen to sponsor. Their names are Bertinus, Arena, and Muhammad. And after several years of waiting, I finally got to go. And that was like a dream come true. I didn't care about the travel. I didn't care about anything. I was going to do whatever I could to get there and meet those kids. And I got to meet them. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it was like seeing them. So the first one I met was Bertinus. And it wasn't on the assigned trip that we were to go meet them. I met him in his school. The first day that we went to a school, I ran in to the kid we sponsor. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So I took a picture with him, and he kept begging me to come to his house. He's like, you're coming to my house, you're coming to my house. I was like, I know I am, I just don't know when. Because he was like, you're coming tonight. I was like, okay. Alrighty. And we actually did go that night, which was really cool. And we went to his house, and his family was so warm and so welcoming. And his brother is a chatty Cathy. He talked the entire time, and I didn't understand a word. I feel so bad. But Bertinus actually continually came back to the guest house, and it wasn't really to visit me. He talked with David the whole time so he could learn English. He was so hungry to learn English so one day he could come and visit me here. And he wrote me a letter, and he was like, I'm going to strive to learn English and so I can come visit Cammie City. So Clayton is now Cammie City, officially. The next kid we got to meet, her name is Arena. And she's my age, and we went to visit her, and her house was actually pretty nice, unlike Bertinus's, who had like several people in it, and it was very broken down. But there was like nothing in it. It was pretty empty despite looking new. And she was a lot harder to communicate with because she spoke in the Mentawai dialect, so we had to have 2 translators. So it translated one language, then another, then to English. So it was really hard to get to know her, but she was very sweet. We danced together. We had a lot of fun. And then the third kid we met was Muhammad. He did not say a word the entire time. He's very little and very shy, but the thing that spoke wonders was the fact that he still had the soccer ball that my dad gave him 2 years ago. And it was destroyed. And he was the only one that played with it. He never let anyone else touch that soccer ball. No one got to touch it, just him. And there was no color left on it. It was ripped of all its little patches. And I was like, that is so cool that he just was so protective of something for 2 years. And they still had it, knew exactly where it was. The third girl that I met, we did not sponsor. Her name was Lydia, and she actually gave me this necklace that I hold very dear. And they're all very giving. Bertness gave me like a ton of jewelry. But I met her at the school, and she actually sang, which she has a beautiful, beautiful voice. And she would come and visit me at the guest house as well. And she spoke very good English. And she would hook her arm around mine and drag me everywhere around the house. She introduced me to her boyfriend, who didn't seem all that interested in her, unfortunately. And he did not talk to her that much. And she would just pull me around everywhere and talk to me, and she loved hanging out with me, and she hung on my arm the entire time, and she was just so sweet. And I miss her a lot. I love Lydia. She was right around my age. And it was just really cool, because the first time I met her in the school, and then when Michael was meeting his kid, I met her again. She was actually at Michael's kid's house. And she was like, Cammy! And I was like, okay, hi. I don't remember your name, because you meet so many of those kids, and they're throwing their names at you. And yeah, so just getting to meet all of them was huge, and seeing how they had nothing, but how generous they were to go and get me something. And it's like I struggle getting things for people because I don't have that much spending money, but they have nothing. And they're over here like, I'm going to bring you this, I'm going to bring you this, I'm going to bring you this. I'm like, you don't have to. But I hold everything that they gave me so close to my heart, and I love every little piece.
Okay, so I'm Dave. I might remember me from earlier this morning. So this was my second trip to Mentawai. And it was every bit as fulfilling as the first one. I'm looking at that picture up there, and I'm thinking, we should have worn those clothes, and it would have been like smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
And you guys could have got a little bit better appreciation of our trip. But nonetheless, it was really rewarding. And there's two things that I saw that were just amazing and spoke to me. Of course, the visit with Muhammad and the soccer ball was amazing. And, fortunately we had another new one for him, so now he's got two. But nonetheless, it's just, they hold dear to us. And one of the things that people ask, why do you go? When we get there, we're like rock stars. It's pretty scary. Partly because we're the only white people on the island, but beyond that, they are just so generous to us. And I mean, every time we turn, it's like, oh, wow, can we get your picture? We want to get pictures with you. We want to be here, and we want to do this. And they're so generous to us. And I feel like I'm at a loss to how can I accept this generosity with what I have been given in life by God, with no deserving, and did nothing. I didn't choose to be born in North Carolina, in the U.S. They didn't choose to be born in Mentawai, right? That's just where God placed them, and yet they are so generous and so welcoming of people. So I've been on a bunch of mission trips. I'm going to tell you, Mentawai is both situationally the safest place I've ever been to, as well as just extremely welcoming. So what did I see, though, in the 2 years? I saw tremendous progress in the last 2 years, and I see God's hand doing so much. But He's using the government. There's new roads. They're planning a whole new road that goes across the whole island that will actually, for the first time, connect the southern and northern part of the island by road. Right now, there's no way to get from one part of the island to the other except by a 2-hour boat ride. A little bit bigger boat than we were on. But nonetheless, so there's progress being made, giving us opportunity. The rubber tree plant that we went to visit, I'm going to show you a video on that in just a second. The rubber tree plant we went to visit, there's a brand new road going right by it. Food for the Hungry got this land. Someone donated to them because it was off in the middle of nowhere on the side of a hill, but perfect for rubber trees. The government, just by chance, put a new road right beside it. What do you think the odds of that are, right? You see God's hand in so many places. So now they have access. Now, When I say new road, it's a new sidewalk, okay? It's not anything that you're going to think of as a road, but it is for them, and it gives them access to these areas. And I saw progress after progress. The last time we were there, there's a path that we rode the scooters on that was literally 2 boards wide that I don't know if road was the correct term, survived as we went down through this path. And when I was there this time, I saw that path we took, and it's surrounded by 2 huge roads now. They're building this Trans-Sibiru highway. They're putting a hospital on the island. They're putting a high school on the island. They're putting a university on the island. So all this progress. Now, obviously, Food for the Hungry is not part of that. But when we invest there, God sees and He just opens other doors, right? He uses the government. You know, He uses me, hopefully, in a small way, but there's progress being made, and it gives us more opportunities to reach these people and to help them. We talked about the basic things. When I went over there, of course, you know, I expect to do everything veterinary, and I don't think I've done anything veterinary in the 2 years I've been there. Last time I taught CPR for humans, and it was amazing. This time, I taught breastfeeding. So, you know, it's one of those things, right? You just don't know what you're going to be used for. But it is amazing because, you know, it's such a thing that we don't think about. In that island, none of the indigenous people breastfeed. They don't understand it. They don't understand the value. At day 1, they start feeding their children rice. Okay? And they wonder why they're stunted. They wonder why they have problems. When you compare them even just to Indonesia, their stunt rate is like 60% higher than Indonesia. Not the U.S., but Indonesia. And so, you know, I got that feeding ahead of time, as supposed to speak, and they said, here's what you're going to speak on. And I was able to go research it. Obviously, it's not a big stretch for me, but and present this to them and give them these ideas. And lo and behold, a week we're there, the Minister of Health is there, and guess what she's promoting? It's amazing when you see God's hand, right? He's using us in a small way, and He's using the government. He's growing that island, and it's just amazing to see it. So to be a part of it through Food for the Hungry, it is so important. You know, we do that sponsorship, but it's boots on the ground. We're there a week. I've been there 2 weeks in 2 years. How much of an impact, right? But Food for the Hungry is there 24/7, year-round. And that's where the sponsorship goes. And that's where it's so helpful because of all this progress that we see, and there's people there. All right, now we can play the video if you don't mind. If the audio's on. Okay, so this is us on the rubber tree plant coming down. I will preface this by saying I did have a near broken ankle. That's my excuse. And we're coming down about an 80-degree angle. Oh, no, down goes Frazier. And that is a rubber tree plant I just broke. So we had 700 on the high. We now have 699. But I did replant it, so maybe it's 701 now. So maybe it's a positive. But yeah, Rick Son's kind of laughing at me, right? You know, they're coming down. And so this was just an incredibly steep hill. Brock didn't even brave, so at least I braved it. There he is down at the bottom, videotaping me falling. And then, unfortunately, I wasn't done. I'm coming up here, and you'll notice that I'm right beside that guy, and all of a sudden I'm by him. And worse than that, I threw a shoe. Wait, oh no, I've lost my shoe. Well, look where it goes. It's like gone. Okay, I found it. By the way, those are not Skechers mountain boots. Those are apparently Skechers slip boots. But at any rate, this was the rubber tree plant. This is where we went out to see. That's one of the incentives that Food for the Hungry is using to try to generate income for the families, and doing so in a co-op form so that they can be, you know, get multiple families together to supply rubber trees for that. So at any rate, that is basically our trip. It was great. It was awesome. I can't wait to go again, sort of. The trip is hard, but no, I'm really looking forward to it. But more importantly, I'd love for you all to have a chance to go because it is a rewarding experience.
There was a lot of reasons why I've wanted to go to Mentawai
This
for
is
a long
Kayla.
time. Oh, sorry.
This is Kayla, by the way.
Kayla.
Yeah.
But the main reason why I wanted to go was to meet the little girl, as you can see on the screen, Humbelina, that I sponsor. I've been sponsoring her since I was in high school. it was a long, hard road to get to where she lives. We had to go on 4 planes and then a long boat ride to get to the island. And then the first day we were there, we went on a really, really long motorbike ride through the jungle that gave a whole new meaning to off-road. We got all the way to the village, and it was the wrong child. So then a couple of days later, we get in a canoe ride, the same one that Michael rode in, for an 8-hour round trip in the river with pythons and lizards and all kinds of stuff to get to the village where she actually lived. And so I got to meet her that day. But it was completely worth all the travel, and I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. But you don't realize how much they appreciate the child sponsorship until you actually go and see. Like, she told me that she'd kept every single letter that I've ever written her, and her mom was really emotional. Her mom was hugging me and kissing me and crying, and they were really emotional when we had to leave. We got to color a picture together while I was there. But if you don't sponsor a child, you should definitely consider it, because it really will change your life, and it changes theirs too. And if you do, make sure you write them lots of letters, because they really get excited whenever you give them letters they love. Then they'll keep them and treasure them forever.
David.
Hey, I'm David, and part of the reason I went to Mentawai was I'm a landscaper, so that's pretty much really all I know. So being able to go over there and play in the dirt with people that don't speak English is something I'm pretty used to. But it was just really, it was amazing to go over there and see just how willing they were to listen to me, because as like Americans, even as me, is like, I get prideful, like, I made this is awesome. And some guy comes over like, yeah, that's wrong. And like, for them to listen to that and then, not just be like, okay, you're just some random white guy, go away. But the people in Mentawai originally are mad people, which means that, I'm hungry, so I'm going to go climb a tree and get a coconut, or I'm going to go catch a fish or something like that. That's basically how they live their life until about 40 or 60 years ago or so. The government came in and built houses and said, hey, why don't you live in these homes? Why don't you try gardening? So gardening is a really new thing to them. Like, all their food is imported, besides pretty much bananas, coconuts, and a few other fruits. Besides that, they import everything else. So what Food for the Hungry has done is they went to the village and said, hey, can we have some land? And so they got about 2 or so acres, and they took the savings club, because before, so the men work, but the women would just sit around and gossip. So now they have something to do. So now every Saturday from all day, they're out there gardening, and it was amazing to see just how happy they were. Like if that was me going out every single day to a garden for food, I would be pretty grumpy. I would not be happy about that. But so that was probably the biggest thing I took away from that, was just how willing they were to listen to us. Because I know, for me, I can get caught up and not listen to anybody, or at work, just I got 9 people yelling at me about something, but I know I'm right because of this thing or whatever. But so it was just really cool to see that.
Hey, I'm Rip. Wow. That's what happens when you put the mic close to your mouth. So similar to Michael, the dynamics of the trip were very dynamic, of what I was going to be doing when I got there, to the point that on the flights over, things were changing. Dave mentioned the Minister of Health coming. Understand they hadn't been there in 12 years, more than 10 years. So when we say, oh, it's a coincidence that this Minister of Health came while we were there talking about the same thing, understand, these people most of them in their lifetime had never seen the Minister of Health before. So for that person to come to their island was a huge event.
They still haven't seen her.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Because it was the assistant to the minister.
She didn't come, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad, but they were planning for the Minister of Health to come, put up billboards and everything, and actually the assistant to the Minister of Health came. Up on the screen is the child that I sponsor and my family sponsors, E.G. And the day before, I had heard about this wrong child thing. And so I do a lot of volunteering at orphanages. And another coincidence is that my child, I guess you figured it out, he's an orphan. And I didn't know that till I got there and they were telling me this. I was like, gosh, that's wild. So I went and he comes around the corner and I'm thinking, this is not my kid. I have a 12-year-old. I have an 11-year-old boy. And this child is like this tall. Something got my eye. So, so I'm thinking, seriously, I'm thinking, this can't be my child. And then as he gets closer, I'm like, well, the pictures, because I get the pictures, and it's him. And he is so scared. I mean, to him, I'm a giant.
Yeah.
Thank the Lord Brock wasn't with me. He'd been trailing me the whole trip, and he wasn't with me that day. So it's just me, or it would have been like just too much for him. So I'm literally a giant compared to this little man. I even get down on my knee, and I'm still a head taller than him on my knees. But as you can see, he warmed up pretty quick. He's a Dodgers fan. So I gave him that hat, and it was just like, oh my gosh, and the soccer ball, and then all the other kids in the orphanage are just like, you can't see them, but they're just crowded around, looking over every corner. You know, you talk about stage fright. There was probably 50 kids trying to watch this event, that this kid had this person come from the United States, this rock star come from the United States to visit him. Okay? So it was a pretty big day for that child. The other thing is later, a day or so later, so that was big, okay? But then I got to speak at a youth event, and I was told, okay, you've got about 20, 25 minutes. So I speak, we get done, and the lady who is doing the translating says, okay, are you going to speak on something else? And I'm like, well, I was told I had 20, 25 minutes. They said, no, we've got 2 hours. I was like, I ain't got 2 hours. I was like, Paul, help. We ended up playing some games with them, and just very simple games that I didn't even hardly remember playing as a child. And they played them and played them and played them, and they just loved it. Anything we could come up with, they just loved it. The next thing people will ask, you know, probably everybody up there, how was your trip? And what I will tell you is this. Is you go blank when you try to answer that, because it is so overwhelming. And I've been on 5 continents. I've been on multiple orphanages, multiple mission trips, and it's always the same. It's like if somebody's never flown in a plane before, and you fly, and they say, well, how is it? How do you describe that? You have to go. We can stay up here for 3 hours. You could have lunch with me every week for a year. But you cannot get the experience of going without going. And it seems expensive. It seems like a long time. It's not. My kids are fine. Michael's kids are fine. The wives handled it. Everything's okay back home. God took care of all that. It's all God's anyway. It's God's time. It's God's money. All we're asked is just open your heart and pray about it. Now, I'm not saying everybody here should go, but I think everyone in here should pray about going. And the first step in that is you start engaging with a child, and you get the letters, and you send the letters. If you don't weep over the things that Christ wept over, then there's other things in your life you need to investigate. Now, end on a high note. So I went to the schools with Michael, and we're supposed to help them with English. And so we're talking and trying to get them to engage in English, and the teachers are trying to get them to ask us questions in English, and they want us to talk in English to them. And I have a hard enough talking English here. So it was very difficult over there, but at least they didn't know I was screwing it up. So it's kind of not going so well in the first class. In the second class, well, I'm going to take a different tact on this. A lot of boys in there. So I told them I was a nuclear engineer, and we started talking about bombs. So get this. This is what, a 90% Muslim country. And as Brock said, so you were teaching them about bombs? I was like, yeah, but they can't get the materials to make them. just like every young boy, they love talking about bombs.
Yeah.
So if you get a chance to write them letters about bombs, probably don't do that. Brock set me straight. My travel partner set me straight. But do pray about going. There's a lot of fun things that happen. There's a lot of difficulty you overcome. I think every one of us got sick at some point with something, whether it was a day or a couple hours. It happens. You get over it, and you come back and you look back at what you experienced, and it's your experience. And it's your experience through the eyes of Christ, because you will see things that you will have never seen before in your life. And it will change you. You cannot come back the same. Thank you.
I'm Dana. When Paul asked me to pray about going to Mentawai, I said sure. But I'm going to be honest. I mean, I had no desire to go to Mentawai on the other side of the world. I don't go camping. I don't do anything. I go to stay in hotels. I just don't do things like that. And so I told him I would pray about it, and I didn't for a while. I mean, he asked me like a year before we were supposed to leave, would I go? And I told him I would pray. And I tried to pray, but I couldn't. I mean, I literally would make time, okay, I'm going to pray about that today, and I would sit there and nothing would come out because I wasn't going to go. I knew I wasn't going to go. The idea of, almost 30 hours on a plane and 5 hours on a boat, and all those critters over there, I had no desire to go to Mentawai. But I did start to pray about it, and I didn't get an answer. I didn't hear anything, and I didn't have a peace about it. So I started thinking, okay, how am I going to get out of this? I started having some health problems, and so I said, well, I'm not going to be able to go. I mean, I've got to eat certain foods. I can't eat their food. I mean, there's no way I can go. Possible, we'll just see what happens. We've still got some time, and so I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And so I
That response happens a lot at our house. So just sort of tell you that. Yeah.
So I did start praying about it, and sincerely this time. And then God began to call Kayla to go. Kayla decided that she wanted to go, and I thought, okay, that's great. Her and her dad can go. I'll stay home with Brock, because can't leave Brock home for 2 weeks without a parent. I mean, what would he do? So that was kind of what I was thinking. And then Brock decided he wanted to go, and FH was going to pay his way to take video. Like, okay, Lord, so you're going to leave me at home by myself? And so I started praying, and I think the Lord used my children to help me realize that he wanted me to go too. So I decided to go, and started the major event of packing, because I make such a big deal out of all that kind of stuff. But honestly, I wasn't going to have my curling iron or my hair dryer for 2 weeks. That is a problem. I'm just telling you. And I know that sounds silly, but I'm just being honest. I was thinking, what am I going to do? I'm going to look horrible over there. And I'm not going to have my makeup. I'm not going to have this. But, all of that didn't matter. And that's all silly, really. But, it did cross my mind. And so, you can ask my family, when we're at White Lake, I've got on lipstick. That's just how I roll. And so, so I decided to, we were going to go, and we got ready to leave, and the travel was brutal. I'm just going to be honest. I had lower back pain that I struggle with all the time, and I don't know how I'm going to sit that long. There's just no way I'm going to be able to sit on a plane that long. And I remember the Sunday before we left to go, Beth Huff came up to me, and I was talking to her about it. And I said, I've got all these body aches. It's just, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm just going to be horrible. And she said, after church, she came up to me, and she came over to me, she put her hand on my back, and she said, I want to pray with you. And she said, I want to pray for healing for your back. And so right there in the back of the room, she did that. And my back never hurt while I was on that trip. It totally went away. And so, God provided for me in that. My body never hurt. I did the travel, like I said, was hard. I was up and down a lot on the plane. I looked over at Paul. He never moved. I'm telling you honestly, he sat still the whole time with his book, and I don't even think he stretched. But then I looked over and saw Rip on the floor on his knees with his head in the plane seat. I'm thinking, what a weirdo. But anyway, you do what you have to do. I mean, we try to encourage each other, and we did a really good job of that. Thanks to Dr. Dave, he had lots of medication for us. So we were, medicated if needed, which we were. On the way back, we all had Finnegan, believe it, but and I had something that Rip gave me that was amazing. I want more of that. But anyway, yeah, that was good. So, but the whole way over there, I was thinking to myself, Lord, why are you sending me over there? I mean, I was kind of like Michael because I didn't really have a thing that I was going to do. I mean, Kayla and I assisted Michael with the teaching. We helped with the activities. I just didn't know how God was going to use me. I mean, everybody kind of had their thing, and I'm like, I feel like I'm just going to be going, and I feel like I need to have a reason to go. And the whole way there, I mean, I just was struggling with that, even on planes and everything. So we get on the boat, the last leg of the trip, and my head's in a trash can the entire time on that boat. And so sick. And so I get off the boat, and we're greeted by the FH staff. And they pull up on all their motorbikes, and they come up and hug the ones they know and introduce us. And we all got on the back of a motorbike and took off down the village, into the village. And it was at that moment that I had a peace come over me. And my heart was full. And I knew at that very moment why I was there. And it's kind of like Michael said, I mean, I feel like that the Lord taught me things. I mean, we had a great time at the teacher training. We got to, the teachers were so eager to learn. I mean, you could just tell they couldn't wait to write down what Michael was saying. Tons of questions. They loved the activities and games that we played. It was just great. And we got to walk alongside FH to see some of the things that they were doing and assist them in that. And that was amazing. Getting to know the FH staff was one of the neatest things of all that we did. I mean, I'm still in contact with a couple of them. One of the ladies that's there, I think she's like 22, Marisi. She and I still communicate on Facebook, and she sends me prayer requests that she has during the week related to what she's doing there, and I do the same. So to me, that's just, you can't put a price on those things. I mean, that's what it's all about. And so we're still ministering to them and have those connections there. And then, meeting our children. I mean, that was amazing. I mean, we're riding with our motorbikes down into the village, and Farrell, one of the kids we sponsor, sees Paul on the motorbike and just slaps his hand as we go by. I mean, and he's so excited because he recognizes him from when he was there last time. And then we go to the other child, Rapunzius' house, and we're getting off the bikes, and we go up to the porch, and they're just jumping. They're so excited. They're so happy, and they have a picture of our family on their front porch when we get there, hanging on the front porch. I mean, that was just, and to be able to hug them and love on them and their families, and to see how little they have, but they're so content. I mean, they have nothing. I mean, their homes are like little huts there's nothing inside. It's just a wood floor, like a barn. One-room barn, a lot of them. I mean, it's really sad, but yet they're so happy. And so for me, I just didn't want to encourage you all to go. I mean, because I was the last person I thought that would ever do anything like that. I mean, I was walking in the jungle barefooted. I fell in mud, waist deep. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen that I would never do here. But I would do it again tomorrow if I had the opportunity to go back. And so I just encourage all of you to take the time to pray about it. And if you think you have this ailment, I can't go, or I can't afford it, or there's no way I can do that. Everybody's not called to do that way. Everybody needs to do it somehow, some way. I don't mean Mentawai, but I think that just think about it and pray about it, because God may call you to go to Mentawai. And if he does, you need to go, because he'll find a way to make you go. And you can start saving your money now. And I just encourage you to do that. I mean, it was one of the most amazing things that I've ever done in my life. Probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but I would do it again. Another cool, really thing that I enjoyed a lot on the trip was I got to know Cammie even better. Cammie is just such a great girl. And, I didn't only know her. I mean, at church. I mean, and she and I just bonded, and I just loved talking to her, hearing about her heart, what's in her head. And so now, even being home, I'm able to connect with her, where before we didn't. So it's just, you really bond with your team, and it's just really amazing how God works and all that. So I just encourage you to to do something like that, because it will change your life. I mean, it's changed the way I think about things, it's changed the things that I do. All those things that I did before, some of the things, I'm learning that they aren't important anymore. So, but anyway.
Good job.
That's it.
All right, one of the things that we did, we were there, obviously, Brock went, and Brock's specialty is videography and that kind of stuff, and so we wanted to create a video which kind of encapsulates like our mission in Mentawai. You'll get to see some of the things that we were talking about in the video, as well as some of the cool scenery, some of the amazing stuff that we were able to do, and some of these, just the environment itself. Hopefully it'll give you a greater feel, and then I'll close this up after the video. So here's the deal, guys. Here's some of the things, just specific things that we did. We did training with the teachers while we were there. We did work in the garden, like David mentioned, with Food for the Hungry. One of the things that they do, I think is one of the greatest things that they do, is the savings clubs. They take these ladies who have all this idle time, they pull them together into a group. Each of them, to be part of the group, has to put money into a deposit together. And they have one person that they elect as their leader, one person as their secretary, one person as their treasurer. The treasurer keeps all of that money. And then they take that money that they've all pulled together, and then they invest that into some kind of micro business. And they begin to make more money. And then as they make more money, what is happening in that process is that they're learning to trust each other more. They're building a greater sense of community, and their lives are getting better. If they're making coconut oil, instead of buying coconut oil, now they have coconut oil for their families as well as to sell to make extra money instead of having to go spend that money on coconut oil. It sounds very basic and simple to us, but for them, that kind of thing is life transforming. And in the time that we've been working with Food for the Hungry in Mentawai, now in the main villages that we're working in, Munte, Salapat, Mara, and Malapet, 90% of the women are in savings groups now. 90%. That is community transformational. One of the things when I went 2 years ago on Dave's trip, we went the first time that I went, we did some pastoral training. We're trying to strengthen the local church because there is, even though Indonesia itself is 97% Muslim, there's pockets of Christianity in these villages on Mentawai. And so one of our goals there, one of our reasons that we were called there was because of the pressure that Islam is placing on those communities and on those children. And as those children get older and they want to get educated, they're offered education, but in order to get their education, they have to give up their faith. And they'll say, yeah, you can come to the Muslim school, but you have to be Muslim to come to this school. And then when your child gets to graduate, guess what? Well, your child can graduate. They can get the certificate of graduation, which will change their life and help them, but your whole family now has to be Muslim. And so what we wanted to do, and there were people doing that. And why were they doing that? It's because they didn't really understand their faith. It's like they didn't really truly understand the value of the gospel, right? So they wouldn't have given that up just for education. And so if we can improve the education and we can strengthen the local church, then there's transformation taking place. And so when I went before, I wanted to do some pastor training, and we got 7 people together. This past time when we went, there was 14 church leaders, and man, it was so much more encouraging to see these people there. So me, Rip, and Dave, we got to pour into these pastors for about 4 hours on Saturday, and then I did for about another 4.5 hours on Sunday afternoon. And so it was an awesome time to see these guys coming together for really the first time ever, and to encourage them and say, look, guys, you have a unique opportunity. The gospel is so valuable. You know, the church that we met in was this little Pentecostal church, and it's probably about as big as the baptistry there, and a little bigger than that. And it's basically a church for the kids that go to the boarding school, which is a little Christian boarding school, which is really nothing special. There's about 40 students that go there, and that church is predominantly built just to minister to those kids. And meanwhile, there's a pastor who lives right next door, and so we went to the youth thing that Saturday night at this church building, and there was about 40 students there. We had a great time with them, like Rip mentioned, and then Sunday morning, I was to preach at that same church. So I'm thinking, man, Pentecostal in the islands, we're going to have us a good time at church. But it really wasn't. It was just kind of cold and empty and kind of robotic. And my heart was breaking a little bit because those students were there again, but there was only like 3 or 4 people from the community that actually came. And so I asked Rickson, who is FH's coordinator in Mentawai, I said, is this church just for the students? He was like, yeah, pretty much. I was like, does the pastor not have a passion to reach his community for the gospel? And so to be able to pour into that pastor at the pastor training, to challenge him and encourage him in that calling, to maybe help him to begin to think about his ministry in new and fresh ways, for the Lutheran and the Protestant and the Catholic and the Pentecostal to all be in the room together, to understand that we all come together around the gospel together, and that is greater than the pressure of Islam. And so we have to stand together. They have to stand together. And so while we were there, they agreed to meet every month now together to build community and strength. They met again on March the 30th. I haven't heard a follow-up from that, but they're going to meet every single month. They've agreed to do that every single month. Everything that we taught them, just like Dana was saying, everything that we taught them, they were hungry, they were writing down. They wanted copies of everything that I presented, everything that we presented to them. They wanted to know so they could have copies of it because they're so hungry for the things that we take for granted. I just encourage you. It takes $35 a month to sponsor one child. Our church sponsors over 250 children in Mentawai. And if you look around the room, it means there's a lot of people sponsoring multiple children. I'm so thankful you guys do that. When I talk to Food for the Hungry, they say, you're our superstar church. We tell your story over and over and over and over again. Because the only church that sponsors as many people as you sponsor has 10,000 members. Why is that? It's because we're passionate about changing the world in this one place. We can't change the whole world, but we can certainly make a difference there. $35 a month at a time. FH is now expanding their work in Mentawai to new villages and other villages, and we're so excited to be a part of that and encourage that. We have packets at the back of the room. If you're interested in sponsoring a kid today, or children, or multiple children, or if you've already sponsored one or two and you want to pick up one or two more, this will be an awesome opportunity for you to do that. These are fresh packets, hot off the press, man. They're ready to go. And the information is there about the student, about the child, and where they live, the village that they live. All these children come from one particular village. It's a new village that FH is moving into in Mentawai. So I just encourage you. It'll be such an encouragement to them and to that staff if I can send them an email and say, hey, every single packet you sent me, it's gone. We need more. This is a good work that we're doing, people. We are making a difference. I just want to encourage you in that. Write letters to your kids. Write them letters. Send them pictures. Encourage them. Be a part of their life. When you go, man, you're blown away by the receptivity and the reality that most of these people live off of like $600 a year, and they're as content as they can possibly be. Let's make a difference together. I just encourage you, if you haven't sponsored a child, or if you already have and you want to pick up 2 or 3 more, today's the great day to do that. What $35 a month for us? It's like, basically $1 a day. Come on, It's easy to sacrifice to make a difference in their life. God has called us to minister to the poor. I don't have time to read. I was going to read. Go read Isaiah 58 today. Go read Matthew chapter 25 today. Listen to the words of God through the prophet Isaiah. Listen to the words of Jesus about us ministering to the poor, feeding the hungry, making a difference. That's our calling as children of the gospel. Let me pray for us, and we'll be dismissed. Father, I'm so thankful for what you've done in bringing us in this partnership with FH. And I'm just so thankful that you have given us an opportunity to partner with you in that work. And I pray today, Father, for our FH staff that's there, for Rick Son and for Fani and for Marisi and Swarman and Simon and Peter and all the ones that are there, Father, Chris, and all the ones that are just doing that hard work every single day. For Chris, as she travels 4 hours upriver twice a week to go to the village of Salapai, Father, I pray for protection for her as she goes. I pray, Father, that you're encouraging her to see that she's making a difference. I pray for Swarman as he goes to a new village where he's 2 or 3 hour boat trip away from the main office there. Father, I pray for Petros as he goes to the village of Madoba, which is a 2 hour motorbike ride away from the office there. I just pray that as they're spread out and as they continue to work, that you're encouraging him. I pray for Rickson as he leads that group, Father. You'll give him wisdom. You'll give him a sense of calling to the people of Mentawai, Father. Even as he plans on getting married this summer, I pray, Father, that your calling on his heart to Mentawai is so great that he will not leave. So, Father, I pray for Effendi, our brother in Christ, who leads everything that FH does in Indonesia. I pray that you give him wisdom and passion. What a great man you have raised up for that purpose. And I'm excited for him to come and to visit us soon. We were thankful for him. Father, I pray that you give him protection and wisdom in all that he does. And Father, I pray for more children to be sponsored today for your glory alone. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you for coming, guys. We start Create next week. New series. If you haven't brought me your panel, I'm coming to your house tomorrow.